All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
And here we are for another week of college football. Maybe Army sucks. Maybe it's just a product of them falling behind early in every single game. What's going on, everybody? It is week 5 of college football. My name is Bill. Put $1 in front of it. You'll find me on Discord and Twitter. Welcome to the week 5 college football SHIPIT Nation DFS breakdown show. And we have a pretty fun looking slate this week. I'll be honest. I looked at the pricing initially and I thought maybe this is going to be another soft pricing week, but it's just a little bit more weird than it is soft, I would say. But we're going to break that all down in a minute. Just a quick note that we still have our football package at SHIPIT Nation. I tell you what, if you're into football and you just want to play college football DFS, NFL DFS, get your football fix in, this $349 for the rest of the season gets less and less valuable the longer you wait. So you might as well get in now. I mean, the Ryder Cup is going on this weekend, so go in for all access. We have swing season stuff for PGA too. Even after the Ryder Cup is done, MMA is still going strong. We're on the fringe of NHL and NBA picking up. So we do have this football for the rest of the season at a nice price for you. But like I said, I always suggest the all access. And if you get in on one of these monthly or longer football packages or all access, we do still have the SHIPIT games going on. We just gave out our 13th ticket this week. And the share ship this week is going to be a $250,000 top prize. So we could be adding to this prize pool again. SHIPITgames.com if you want to learn more information about that. But just an awesome program. I talk about it every week, but I can't get tired of talking about it for what it is. Not too many times you'll see a content provider putting out almost $80,000 in cash and prizes, giving back to the community. It's what we love to do. We're community focused here at SHIPIT. And honestly, like, if this doesn't tell you everything you need to know, I don't know what will. We had some big wins this last week. Our guys Sheets and Rio with some big money wins on the week. But as you can see, just SHIPIT Nation logos littering the top of leaderboards. And this isn't a one-off. It's members at all levels of bankroll, all levels of experience are finding their way to the top of the leaderboard, getting that sweat in every week. And we hope for another sweat this weekend. So let's just jump right into the slate. Week 5, we're going to kick it off with Notre Dame at Arkansas. We have a 4.5-point spread. Notre Dame is the road favorite. CJ Carr just kind of been fine. He showed us a little bit of something against Purdue, but he also only had 12 pass attempts. So it's just a matter of how much you want to put into that. He can get it done on the ground too, but he's just a little bit spendy in this spot. But with a 34-point team total, you're probably going to look at the guy touching the ball every single play, right? Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, maybe the best 1-2 punch in college football. They priced down Jeremiah Love, even though we're going up against the sieve of a defense. But yeah, Arkansas is going to give it up in all likelihood just based on them being Arkansas. But Love at 8,500 is a great price. Even Jadarian Price is priced probably where he should be. He doesn't need quite as much at that cost, but I love both of these guys. And then this wide receiver room, I mean, good luck figuring out the pass catchers. Malachi Fields, it seems like the top guy, but Faison's had a big game. Raridon had a big game. Obviously, Fields had the 11-target game against Texas A&M. So the potential is there for all three of these guys. Fields being the cheapest doesn't quite make sense to me, but if you do want to stack CJ Carr with a receiver, it's probably one of those top 3 guys. I know we could see Pauling still mix in. Greathouse is still there. But honestly, if you're going to stack this game, you're probably looking at, one of these 2 running backs, maybe a wide receiver. And then obviously Taylor Green is just a stud. But at 9,100, it's what price are you going to pay for quarterback? There's some good pay up options on this slate, and Taylor Green is one of them. That's just where you're going to have to start to make your decisions. But he's a guy that doesn't need much explanation. We have seen an uptick in this backfield from Mike Washington's usage. He's got 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games to boot. So at 6,100, he's kind of in that middle range. I think it's a fair price. Honestly, Russell's going to mix in. But his biggest risk is probably Taylor Green rushing. But even still, if you're going all in on this first game of the slate here, I don't mind Washington. And then in this wide receiver room, it's Omega Blake, still leading the charge. I know we have CJ and Jalen Brown, Raylan Sharp, but last week everybody was looking up who the heck is Rohan Jones. We had him projected at SHIPIT Nation. We had a decent projection on him, but not 3 touches for 2 touchdowns type of projection. He had the ultimate ceiling game. Is it repeatable? Obviously, it's repeatable. What are the chances? Probably not as high. But you're really looking at Blake. It's just a little bit expensive on a slate where there's a bunch of cheap wide receivers. So a lot of these guys, I don't mind, especially as last guys in. Jeremiah Love's probably a cash click. Taylor Green's right up there, but there's a few guys in this game that I don't mind as like a last guy in, especially if you have a stack you really like on another game or a good GPP lineup that you like and you have, $6,100 left at running back. Mike Washington's fine. There's definitely adjustments you can make to upgrade elsewhere, but that's kind of how I feel about this game. The team totals, like the game environment is great. So it might go a little bit under the radar just because of how usage has been spread out. The next game, another good total, just not quite as much as the one before. We got Cincinnati at Kansas. Cincinnati, a 4.5-point dog with a 26.5-point implied team total. And I'll just say Brendan Sorsby too cheap. Say what you want about him. But in this offense, he's the team's leading rusher, which honestly, it's not really saying much for Cincinnati. But despite playing, just a partial game, Jalen Henderson even had a solid day against Kansas on the ground. So I don't mind this. Mizzou threw on him with ease, and we know Sorsby can chuck the ball a little bit too. So 6,400, it's too cheap for a game, especially if they are trailing and have to throw a little bit more. But Sorsby being the leading rusher, like I said, is not really a good sign for this running back room. Tawee Walker's there, but his greatest success has come against Northwestern State. And I mean, who doesn't have success against Northwestern State? But no one averages more than 8 carries a game. Could we see this usage shift a little bit? Maybe. I don't. It's a tough click with so many other good plays, and I'll get to another running back that's a great play on the other side of this game in just a moment. Cyrus Allen's still kind of the guy for Cincy here. They played a couple of plus EV matchups, but he did have 5 catches on 7 targets against Nebraska, which is actually, I haven't looked, so I don't know if they're still where they're ranked after that Michigan game in terms of pass defense, but a good pass defense nonetheless. Caldwell and Goody will mix in. All of these guys being in the 4Ks, especially like Joe Royer too, he's consistent. I mean, he doesn't have the most targets on the team, but he's consistently getting 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Like he's going to be on the field. So if you want to pair Sorsby with any one of these guys, they're in that price range where you can make it happen. On the Kansas side, Jalen Daniels, 7,100 is too cheap for him too. He's got that rushing upside. He's already got 12 passing touchdowns on the season too. Like I said in previous shows, he looks like the Jalen Daniels of old. So love him in this spot, especially as a home favorite. But Daniel Highshaw is doubtful to play for Kansas. So LaShawn Williams is looking real nice at 3,900. Williams kind of took the reins against West Virginia, ran the ball 19 times. So if that doesn't kind of lead you to believe that he's going to have a workhorse sort of load, then I don't know what will. But we're getting, if he had been the workhorse all season, he'd probably be in that 6 to 7K range at the very least. But he's 3,900, so we're getting him at a discount just because of injury. In this wide receiver room, it's Emmanuel Henderson. I mean, Cam Pickett flashed early in the season, but Henderson's been the usage hog ever since. They've been playing tight ends in the slot a little bit, so maybe that's why Pickett has fallen off. So you got like Deshaun Hanukkah you can look at for 3,200. But it's really just Henderson you're looking at. Levi Wentz scored his first touchdown last week, and I know his uncle, so cool, but irrelevant for DFS purposes. Emmanuel Henderson is the guy you're looking at if you want to stack a receiver with Daniels. But honestly, I don't mind a Daniels LaShawn Williams stack, QB RB, or basically RB1, RB2. And then, like I said, Sorsby on the other side. A little mini game stack here because we kind of know where the usage is going to go for Kansas, and Sorsby touches the ball every play. Georgia Tech and Wake Forest. Projected to be a 2-touchdown game. Wake Forest being at home does help a little bit. But what really catches my eye here is the price of Haynes King. This is, sub 8K, sign me up. Wake sucks. King is averaging 16 rushes a game. I don't know what more I need to say. If you watched Georgia Tech this year, especially that Clemson game, he was getting the run. And speaking of the run, Jamal Haynes also runs the ball. He's kind of RB2 behind Haynes King right now, though. But at 7K, it's that weird price. It's too easy for Haynes King to eat into his usage. But another possible quarterback running back stack, Hosley will eat in a little bit, but probably not enough to get me completely off of Haynes. He's also getting usage in the passing game, third on the team in targets. So the Haynes combo lives on for Georgia Tech. But he might be third in targets just because Eric Rivers only has 14, and he's the team's leader through 4 games. He does have the big play potential, but like Malik Rutherford and Isaiah Canyon are actually catching the passes thrown their way. Rivers' catch rate is not quite as good as Rutherford or Canyon, and Rutherford is right behind him in targets, and he's played 1 fewer game. So if I'm going to stack Haynes King with a pass catcher, it's probably going to be Rutherford or Canyon, but just know going in, if you do that, Eric Rivers is good enough to pop at any point, and he'll probably get some tempered ownership for that reason. On the Wake Forest side, like I said, I already talked about them enough to give my thoughts on this team. Tech's defense has been fine, not great. I mean, if you're going to attack him, it's going to be on the ground. So maybe Ashford, if he can get his legs going a little bit. He's also cheap at 6K. Damon Claiborne at 5,900 just seems unreal to me. He's the workhorse of this backfield. I know he got hurt in that first game, but he bounced back, albeit against an FCS opponent. He's definitely going to at least get a look when I see his name next to a 5K range price. And then another misprice at wide receiver. Chris Barnes is the team's leader. 3,600 is way too cheap for him. Speaking of catch rate with Eric Rivers, Carlos Hernandez is even worse. He leads the team in targets, but he just has a 39% catch rate. Claiborne and Sterling Burkhalter both have more receptions than Carlos Hernandez does. But Chris Barnes is really the first guy I'm looking at in this wide receiver room. After that, it's kind of a mix and match. But if you are of the ilk that thinks Wake Forest can keep this game even somewhat close, the pricing is really nice in this game for you to get some action on and pay up at quarterback or running back elsewhere. But beyond that, it's really just the Georgia Tech side with Haynes, and maybe one of those pass catchers. Louisville at Pittsburgh. Louisville's a 4.5-point road favorite, and Pitt's not really the cream of the crop, but maybe the best opponent Louisville's played all year. Miller Moss, again, been solid, but the team didn't look that great against JMU. Did rebound nicely against Bowling Green despite not having a passing touchdown, but 5,700, another just unrealistic price for him long term. I can't see him staying in the 5Ks, and I honestly see him getting up to the 7 and 8Ks as the season goes on. But you only need 17 to hit his floor here, so he's definitely going to get a look from me. This running back room is interesting. Isaac Brown and Duke Watson are both listed as questionable, and Kewan Brown is already listed as out. So we're going to have to watch this. It does seem like Isaac and Duke Watson are trending toward playing, but if we do get some news that they aren't going to be able to go, it's Braxton Jennings, min price running back, who's probably going to get a lion's share as long as, he takes care of the football. Or if we get news that one of these running backs is going to be out, we know Isaac Brown's been a workhorse in the past, regardless of what the running back room looks like. So even at 7,700, you could consider him. But on the Louisville side, if you want to avoid that running back room altogether, especially if everybody's going to be healthy and we don't quite know yet what that's going to look like, Chris Bell and Colin Lacey are both underpriced. They hog most of the target share. And, Bell's been a little bit more consistent, but Lacey had a big 8-reception game last time out. Ja'Gary Collins actually started last game too. And at 3,200, he's not the worst option in the world. He did have a big game. Like I said, just the discount you're getting on him, but really it's just Bell and Lacey. You could even do a double stack with a $5,700 quarterback and middle range wide receivers. It does open up a lot in terms of stacking, especially if you're going to run it back with the Pittsburgh side. I mean, Pitt's had one test this year. I mean, is West Virginia considered a test? I mean, they didn't look good in that game, but Eli Holstein still had 300 yards passing. So $7,500 is probably still a little bit underpriced. And like I said, even if they lose the game, if they're going to put up numbers, who cares? We don't care about who wins and who loses in terms of DFS. We just want to know who's going to get the yards and who's going to get the scores. And Holstein is one of those candidates for sure. Desmond Reed has been practicing. He did get hurt early in that West Virginia game, but they had a bye week, and he, like I said, he's been at practice. So it seems like he should be a go. And if you know anything about Desmond Reed, $7,300 is not expensive enough for him. So in this, it's a home game for Pitt. Makes me like him a little bit more even. So if he doesn't go, Jules Goff is not min price, but close enough to min price. And he seemed to get the workload after Reed went down a couple weeks ago. But I do think Reed is going to go. And at 7,300, you're going to consider him, especially with how cheap the passing run backs are with Louisville in a game stack situation. And speaking of underpriced, Raphael Williams is the leader of the pack for Pitt thus far, coming off of a couple of huge games. Kenny Johnson and Katoris Hicks are going to be the other two guys out there, and Hicks is min price. But Sincere Lee is projected to be back. He's probable on the injury report, so that is likely going to affect the usage, even if ever so slightly. It could take away from one of these or all three of these top guys, honestly. But Williams does seem like the safest one. The tight end situation is a little bit interesting because it was Jake Overman to start the season, but he's done virtually nothing. So now we have Malachi Thomas starting over man. It's, again, another min price. It'd be an extreme dart throw, but like I said, top two wide receivers for Louisville with Miller Moss is cheap. Pittsburgh is cheaper than they probably should be. So a very, very stackable game. It seems like I've been saying that a lot already. Maybe it's another good slate for GPPs, everybody. So go ahead and stack this game if you wish. I will not talk you off that at all. USC at Illinois. Really liking the looks of this USC game after watching Illinois-Indiana last week. Illinois' defensive secondary is decimated. I don't know exactly who's going to be out there, but it's an early game, so we will get news. And if you see a lot of those normal starters on defense that are not playing, this might be a spot to attack them, even though we have the West Coast to East Coast time zone travel. That is a real thing, by the way. With Jane Maeva at 8K, he can definitely reach his ceiling at this price. Like I said, especially after what we saw last week. 8K is a fair price. Again, there's some good options right above and some good options below him too. So it playable. I'll call him playable. I'm not going to write him off. Wayman Jordan has definitely taken a hold of this backfield. He's got 16 or more carries in the last 3, and he's got 6 targets to go with it. The thing that might give me pause is that Eli Sanders also had 16 carries last game. So maybe we see more of a 50-50 split, but they were also just doing whatever they wanted to on the ground against Michigan State. So maybe we don't look as much into that one game sample size. Long term, they're probably going to be throwing the ball, but if they do get up early, I wouldn't be surprised to see another heavy workload for both of these guys, both at fair prices. Brian Jackson could be back. Again, we're not going to know that until we get there. But like I said, at least it's an early game, so we'll have that news. Somebody we do think is going to be back is Jacoby Lane. He missed last week, but he's been practicing, so it adds another target for Maeva in this passing game. But with or without Lane, Mekhi Lemon has been the guy this year. Even at this price, he's got the upside. He's one of the more expensive receivers on the slate, but I don't mind it at all. And Lake McCree is the other guy who's going to be out there on the field, and at 3,200, it just kind of a look from me. Illinois, it's hard to really talk any of these guys up after the showing they had last week. I mean, Luke Altmaier is priced down, but why wouldn't he be? And Ryan Brown did throw for 300 on this USC team, so maybe that's what you're holding on to. At 6,200, he doesn't eat up a ton of salary. So sure, Luke Altmaier's fine. There is a glimmer of hope for him. Aiden Lafferty should be good to go for this game, so that kind of dampens really anything I'm looking at in this running back room. It's Fagan and Lafferty and maybe Valentine mixed in, but they're just all priced in that range where maybe you click on a name as a last guy in and hope that he's the one who gets the hot hand. But this wide receiver room is a little bit more interesting. Hank Beatty was banged up, but he is expected to be back. He's probable. I do like his target share and the upsides there. And then Dixon's kind of the next guy up. And He just hasn't, had the explosive game yet. But really, like Hudson Clement and Justin Bowick are honestly guys, they're not priced, like they're min price. So if they're guys that are going to be on the field at min price, the opportunity is going to be there. So it's just a matter of Altmaier looking their way. And I don't mind paying down at receivers who are going to at least be on the field. And like Hudson Clement, we know, is a decent wide receiver. He was wide receiver 1 at West Virginia. I don't know how much that says, but again, Illinois being the home team and the travel for USC, if this game does stay tight, it's another stackable game. I should just hit a button. I need a button that says this game's stackable. Saying it a lot today. Auburn at Texas A&M, one of the lower totals on the slate, but should be a competitive game at the very least, you'd hope. Jackson Arnold is cheap. A&M hasn't really done much on defense to get me completely off of him. His legs are a little bit more intriguing than his arm in this one, just, based on what Texas A&M has done this year. They've been giving it up more on the ground than they have through the air. This is another interesting backfield, though. Darrell Robinson's already ruled out. Jeremiah Cobb found his way onto the injury report. So we'll have to see what that looks like. Like, he might have been banged up last game, but Damari Alston had 46 snaps to Cobb's 22. Now, was that because of the injury? I don't know if that was the primary factor, but definitely something we're going to watch. I do think Cobb is going to go in this one. But Alston was RB1 coming into the year. They're both priced, again, in that middle range. They're fair. Not the greatest game environment, but they're fine players. I don't know that I'll get there too much in DFS. Eric Singleton has been getting the target share, and he's a big discount from Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman is a stud. Like, there's going to be one of these games where he goes for 30, but until we see it, it's harder to click his name when there's Eric Singleton sitting at 4,800 and producing more this year on the same team. So he's a very solid play at 4,800. Coleman's definitely got the upside. One thing, Horatio Fields broke his foot at practice earlier this week, and Perry Thompson seems to be the guy that's going to be next man up. Don't know, like another min-price wide receiver, but it's kind of the unknown with him. But it could funnel more to Eric Singleton and Cam Coleman as well. That's probably still where I'm looking if I'm going to play the Auburn side, and probably honestly as a one-off. I don't know how much I love Jackson Arnold, but 6,900, like I said, will catch my eye. And then on the Texas A&M side, as the home team, Marcel Reed, 9,300, fine, sign me up. He's been huge this season, 3x his price every single game, even at 9,300. And he looks good. He looks really good. They beat Notre Dame, obviously. That was a later game on a national stage. I'm sure most of you who are watching this saw that, if not, at least caught up on the box score and highlights later. I really would like this a lot more if their team total was above 30. It has nothing to do with anything except the fact that it's a number in the 20s staring me in the face when there's 30-point team totals. And obviously those are just predictions, but it would be a little bit more comfortable if they were in the 30s. The backfield does have a bunch of guys that mix in. However, Le'Veon Moss had 20 carries last game. So if you think that's a trend, you're definitely going to consider him at 5,400. So like I said, it's a one-game sample size, but if they are going to keep trending in that direction, it's a great price for Moss in this game environment. But the surprise of the year is Mario Craver getting 9 targets a game, and his worst output on DraftKings this year was 25.4 points, which is just shy of 5x his current price at 5,200. He is not a $5,200 wide receiver. After 2 of his games are in the 30s, and they're still pricing him at 5,200. So he's kind of in that first click for cash sort of range. And it makes it easier to stack with Marcel Reed if you do want to do a game stack in this game. Casey Concepcion probably isn't a $5,900 or $5,700 wide receiver either. His catch rate just hasn't quite been there, but he's still got a ton of upside. After that, there is a big drop off, and anyone else is kind of a dart throw here. But those top 2 guys in this game have a huge ceiling. A Marcel Reed double stack with those guys, if you can figure out a way to afford it and like the rest of your lineup, does seem pretty juicy. And run it back with Eric Singleton. I wouldn't be surprised if I have shares of that, and that's just one example of how you can play this game. But up front, if you can afford it with the Reed price, it's really nice. LSU at Ole Miss may be the best real-life game on the slate, but also looks like there's a lot of points, especially if you buy into Twitter and Lane Kiffin, whose daughter is dating a defensive player on LSU. It was posted on Twitter, and Lane Kiffin responded to the tweet and said, bet the over. So if you don't follow Lane Kiffin on Twitter, it's one of the more entertaining ones in college football. But if you believe in Lane Kiffin's tweet, this game looks even better than the 27-29 total that we have here. Garrett Nussmeier, he's been pretty average this year, but you can still look at him just because the pass defense for Ole Miss has been pretty atrocious. A couple of games they weren't tested, but when they were tested, Taylor Green went off on them. But what I do know is everybody is running the ball on this defense, and Caden Durham, if he goes, he did make his way on the injury report, so we're going to have to watch for news over the next couple of days. We're not going to get the news early enough for the 11 o'clock Lord's time zone locks, but we will get Friday's injury report to see if he does get upgraded. But at 6,100, it's just too cheap for his workload. Probably looking at mid-teens to high teens in carries in this one. Again, questionable, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. The wide receiver room, Aaron Anderson, Barry, and Brown, they're both in line for a solid amount of work. Brown's just cheaper. And Xavier Thomas could also mix in and is even cheaper yet. And, a couple of these guys can get involved in the running game too. So even if they don't get the targets, there is going to be some other slight opportunity. Bauer Sharp is a guy that, he's on the field, and I would not be surprised to see him have a 2-touchdown game at some point. Trey'Dez Green is back, but how much that eats into Sharp and his time on the field, I don't know that it's anything to take too heavily, but it is something to consider because Green hasn't played yet, and he's now listed as probable. But on the Ole Miss side, Trinidad Chambliss, everybody loves Chambliss right now. We might as well run it back with him at 7,700, just too cheap. I do think that LSU's defense is a little bit overrated right now too, until we see it, considering how Florida and Clemson's offense has been. Now, I'm not saying they have a bad defense, but it may not look as good after facing an offense like Ole Miss. But again, that's just something we'll have to wait and see. Kawan Lacey, one of the bigger workhorses on the slate at 6,700, seems like a steal. I'll be looking at Lacey pretty closely. The wide receiver room, a little bit more up in the air, but they're still all pretty cheap. Harrison Wallace let everybody down last week, but if that means anything, it's a prime spot for a bounce back. Even at 5K, they priced him up a little bit. So if it gets people off of him, and he, like I said, bounce back potential is definitely there. I'll play him at low ownership. Deuce Alexander had the big game last week, and he's still too cheap. Daquan Wright, Caden Lee, Dejon Stribling, all going to be involved, all sub 5K. Daquan Wright's in the 3Ks, and he's low-key an animal at tight end. He's fun to watch if you haven't watched Ole Miss play football this year. And he does have ceiling potential in him. Honestly, 10X? We'll just go 8X to be safe, 3,500. The potential's there. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I do like the potential for it. So if I'm MMEing, I'm definitely getting shares of this Ole Miss offense with a mix of these wide receivers, but Kewan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss would probably be my highest exposed if I were a bigger MME player. Baylor at Oklahoma State. Baylor. That's really all I got to say. If you thought Ole Miss's wide receivers were spread out, let's talk a little bit of Baylor. The nice thing about Sawyer Robertson is he's the one who's throwing him the ball. So even at 10-1, Robertson is really enticing. The running back room, also expensive, but for good reason. Bryson Washington is a workhorse. Plus, he has double-digit targets on the season already, so he's involved in the passing game. The one thing is that Caden Knighton, in this sort of game script, could definitely get there at 3,500, and he could start to work in a little bit earlier with the cesspool of a team that they're facing on the other side. So keep that in the back of your mind. I'm not saying go out and put Caden Knighton in all of your lineups, but especially if you're playing Bryson Washington, go in eyes wide open. In this wide receiver room, I mentioned them briefly. They have 4 guys with more than 20 targets, 7 with double-digit targets. Ashton Hawkins spent most of last week invisible, and now he's 4,300. And even without getting much last week, if anything, he still has 25 targets on the season. Cameron and Trigg both had more than 30 targets, and you might remember Michael Trigg had that 16 target game to kick the season off, and he missed a half of football this season already and still has over 30 targets. And you can't forget about Cole Wilson at 4K. He had a huge game against Auburn. He just hasn't found his ceiling since. So there's good prices on these guys. If you find the right combination where the usage is getting funneled, it could mean a big day for a team with a nearly 40-point implied team total. Even in a road game, this is, Baylor's licking their chops looking at Oklahoma State on the other side. And that's because Oklahoma State's bad. And they're going to be coached by not Mike Gundy for the first time in 2 decades. I don't know how much Oklahoma State I'll get to here. Plus, their injury report is longer than Gundy's tenure at the school. So I don't know. Rodney Fields is a little bit interesting. If you watch the OSU Tulsa game at all, or even saw the box score, Caleb Hicks kind of got phased out of the offense completely. He was dressed on the sideline by all reports, but it was Rodney Fields. And now Freddie Brock is doubtful. He's the guy who came in relief of Fields when he needed a breather. So at 4K, even in this game environment, Rodney Fields might catch my eye if he's legitimately going to be the only guy out there. But really, you're looking at the Baylor side here. Utah at West Virginia, almost a full 2 touchdown and extra point spread. Utah with an implied team total of 30. Devin Dampier, if you played him last week, I'm sorry. Now he's 9,600. But he was dealing with injury, it sounded like, and we found out after the game. But this is a much easier matchup. If he does get his body right, 9,600 is not too expensive for the ceiling potential he has. It's just a matter of clicking his name with that price tag, looking at the rest of the slate. Nakari Rogers and Wayshawn Parker have been splitting the backfield, but Parker's been much more effective with his usage. They're kind of in that price range where there's good guys above him, good guys below him, a little bit tougher click, even with a positive game environment for Utah. Hunter Andrews out for the season, and that means probably just more for Ryan Davis and Dallin Bentley. Davis is already, on my radar for cash before. He's going to be on my radar for cash as long as he's 4,500, even if Hunter Andrews was in. And Dallin Bentley has the upside in the 3Ks. It's hard to say where this usage is going to go for Utah. It might just funnel more to Bentley and Davis with no Andrews, especially because they still have defensive players that are getting snaps on offense and getting targets. So it's tough to say like Tobias Merriweather is going to be next man up or JJ Buchanan is going to be next man up, even though their prices are nice. Until we see it on the field, it's just going to be a lot harder to predict. So I would just focus on those top 2 guys in the wide receiver room. On the West Virginia side, we could just talk about injuries. Nico Markiel is questionable to play, so we could see Jalen Henderson. We could see Scotty Fox. We could see both. I don't know that this is a matchup I want to test 2 quarterback potential in, especially Jalen Henderson's more expensive than Miller Moss. Why not play Miller Moss, who has 300-yard upside? The running back room also dinged up. Ty Edwards is questionable. Sincere Bowers is doubtful, so we could see a heavy dose of Clay Ash. I know they've been talking about Diori Hubbard a little bit. Again, tough game environment, but if Ash is the only guy getting usage, 4,400 is not bad. And then in the wide receiver room, definitely upside for Cam Vaughn here, but I really don't know what to do with this room, especially Preston Fox is also on the injury report. So at this point, with a 17.5-point team total on a slate like this, I don't even know if you need to consider West Virginia. Indiana at Iowa. Talked a little bit earlier about Indiana blowing out Illinois. Fernando Mendoza, now your Heisman favorite. And it's A, because he's been a stud this year, and B, because John Mateer's hurt. He can run when he needs to. He hasn't really needed to this year. $6,800 for the Heisman favorite. I don't know how much explanation more than that you need. Roman Hemby, Kalen Black, Kobe Martin. It's a 3-headed monster in this backfield. Lee Beebe went down, and they didn't skip a beat in getting Kobe Martin usage in the last game. Again, Indiana hasn't had a close game yet this year, so what this running back room will actually look like long-term may be yet to be seen, but we're still looking at potential for 3 guys to get equal amount of carries in this one. They're all fairly cheap. There's just a lot of better options on this slate. Definitely upside for Surratt and Cooper, especially if you're playing Mendoza and you want to stack it. EJ Williams, Jonathan Brady, Holden Stays, Riley Nowakowski, just guys that are going to be on the field. But it's really those top two that you're looking at. And it's an easy stack with Mendoza. I don't think you're going to run it back on the other side, another sub 20-point implied team total. But Mark Gronowski does have the upside being a dual threat, and he's cheap. He's just we've already talked about guys that are cheaper than him that seem to be in better spots. So it's a GPP play at best. The running back room is interesting. Jazion Patterson. We'll just call him Patterson. Patterson's going to be out this game. They've already announced that. We don't have to wait for the injury report Saturday morning. So we should see a lot of Kamari Moulton. And then Terrell Washington should be the next man up. But Moulton was the RB1 coming into the season, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him start to get workhorse. He did find the end zone Friday night last week, and he's definitely looking good enough to be on the field long term. So 6,200 is fine. Again, just a situation where there's a lot of good running backs on this slate above and below him pricing. So if you want to spend up, you can. If you want to spend down, you can. This middle range is just, it's a tough click for Moulton in this game. And I'm not going to even talk about the Iowa wide receivers. Ohio State at Washington, another potentially good game in real life. Julian Sayin, didn't do much against Texas, but he didn't necessarily, like, they wanted to win that game. And he did well enough that they didn't lose. But how well can he travel for his first Big Ten Conference road game? Washington has done really well this season. The one thing with Washington, though, is, watching Wazoo move the ball on them in the Apple Cup is pretty concerning. Ohio State, in case you didn't know, is a better football team than Washington State. So if the Cougs can move the ball, I think the Buckeyes can too. Just saying that you might want to consider saying. But at 8,100, another pricing thing when you look at the slate as a whole, we'll get to a guy in the next game who is in the exact same range as him that might be in a better spot. CJ Donaldson, James Peoples, Bo Jackson. If you're looking at the game against Texas, CJ Donaldson got the 2-1 workload over Peoples. But a little wrench thrown into this, Bo Jackson has been getting work against bad football teams. However, if you look at the props, Bo Jackson is second in rushing props. He is now ahead of Peoples. So if you believe in the true freshman, 3,100 is a very easy price to fit into your lineup. And Bo Jackson has the upside, like the ceiling talent in real life. And if you're a believer that this Bo Jackson could be the next Bo Jackson, it's weird. 3,100 is great. I love him in this spot, especially if Ohio State can get ahead and they're going to continue to trust the freshman. It's just, again, you're making predictions at that point. Jeremiah Smith, you don't need to make predictions about because he's already shown on the field what he's capable of. Doesn't need much explanation, just a matter of if you can fit $9,000 wide receiver in your lineup and still like the rest of it. Carnell Tate's at a nice discount. 6,100 is a solid price for him. And he should still be very involved. I do think Max Clary is another tight end that he's going to have a ceiling game, and we're going to see 25 points next to his name with the flame emoji, and we're not going to be surprised by it just because we know the talent's there. He just hasn't been involved in his first few games as a Buckeye. On the Washington side, it is difficult just because of how these guys are priced. It's a home game, which helps. Damon Williams is a dual threat, normally at 8,200. You really take a hard look at him. And in some games, he would just be an easy first click. But in this matchup, you do take pause. Jonah Coleman at 6,900, he's had a stellar season to start the year. I do think he has the upside in this game, not just because of his workload in the run game, but because he's getting targets too. So at that price, it's fine. The pass game, the one thing I'll say about Denzel Boston is that he's going to get the targets. I just don't know if I can pay $7,500 for him in a matchup against Caleb Downs. After that, don't. I mean, you can, fine, if you want to, but there are legitimately 5 other min-price wide receivers on this slate that I would rather play over any of these Washington guys if you do need a min-price option. So if you do believe Washington can keep it close, it's probably because of Williams, Coleman, and Boston. It's just a tough game stack if you want to play the usage guys with Smith and Boston being the prices that they are and those quarterbacks being in that upper mid-tier range. Speaking of the upper mid-tier range, we got Joey Aguilar on Tennessee, who's a 7.5-point favorite on the road at Mississippi State. He's looked really good this year. We saw him perform well against Georgia, who, like, these SEC teams are just scoring points now. So you're not quite as worried about the defense, as you might have been a few years ago. So Joey Aguilar is great, and why not just find the extra $100 or $200 to pay for him over one of the quarterbacks in the last game. I do still think Deshaun Bishop's RB1 in this room, but if you look at the box scores as far as like rushing usage, you wouldn't know it because Star Thomas still gets a ton of usage, and Peyton Lewis even works in. It's another situation where you're trying to find the hot hand in this backfield. But the wide receiver room's a little bit clearer. Chris Brazzell had the huge game on the big stage against Georgia, but actually Braylon Staley has as many targets as Brazzell does. He just doesn't have the yards. Brazzell's already got like 420 yards on the season. It's insane the year he's having so far. Both of these guys are priced probably underpriced in that 5K range. So if you're in the 5K range for a receiver, I like both of these guys. Mike Matthews still can mix in for sure, but he's been playing third fiddle so far this year. And on the Mississippi State side, like, are they good? I don't know. I think they're all right. I mean, 28 points, even though they're at home against Tennessee, but 28 points against Tennessee ain't nothing. Blake Shapen is fine. He is a cheap option in a good game environment if you want to pay down at quarterback. There's already a couple other pay down quarterbacks that I like a little bit more, but it's a leverage play, especially since teams have been scoring. Like UAB scored on Tennessee in Knoxville. So if they can do it, so can Mississippi State at Mississippi State. This running back room, Fluff Bothwell has been the guy lately, but they've also had a group of 5 and FCS matchups. So I did think he was the RB1 coming into the season. So at sub 5K, I don't mind him, but I also would not be surprised to see Devon Booth get the usage in this game at 4,700. So it's kind of a coin flip between these two. If I was going to pick one, it would be Bothwell, but I don't know that I'm going there on the slate. The wide receiver room, it's Evans and Thompson at the top, and it's I mean, not super close after that. But both of them being sub 5K, both averaging 6+ targets a game, and they have the big play potential. And again, Tennessee's been beaten through the air. So if you do want to stack Mississippi State, like a 2 wide receiver stack with Shapen, if you think Thompson and Evans can get there's a good chance they take Shapen with them, and you can run it back with one of these Tennessee guys. Again, Mississippi State being at home does give me the thought that they could potentially keep it closer. But that's it for this slate. Like I said, stackable game after stackable game after stackable game, and then there's Iowa. And Oklahoma State, even worse. But there's a lot of different ways you can go. Again, good slate for GPPs. Cash, we might see ownership spread out a little bit more than we normally would. But just an awesome time to be playing college football, which leads me right into rule number 1. College football is fun. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the sweat. Enjoy watching college football and just the fact that we have the opportunity to play college football DFS. But most of all, don't take a single day for granted. We don't get enough, and we never know when this one is going to be our last. But for now, that's going to wrap up the show. I will see you in the streets this weekend, and let's ship one for the big guy.